Cool. Now we can actually dive in and stop worrying about technical issues. So Jonathan gave a great overview of what the HTML5 SDK is. You know, I think of it as like WWT Lite for the browser. It's got a lot of the features, but not all of them. And it was written in 2010 using a library called Script Sharp, and we just compile it down to JavaScript, and it makes a nice JavaScript library. And it uses the HTML canvas element, which is pretty much, it's the most flexible object. It works in all the browsers. It's a real accepted standard, and it's going to be WebGLified when we get more real estate on our calendar and are able to finish that out. So there's actually, now Jonathan, do you know if the SDK, is Jonathan here?
No.
Okay. Eric, do you know if the SDK got completely updated by William?
Oh.
I know he did a whole, I think he did a whole bunch of work to correct it.
Then he went to Google.
Yeah, then he left us. But essentially there's this a bunch of documentation on how to actually use the HTML5 web control. So Worldwide Telescope.org uses the first three versions of these four fundamental usages. So, you know, the most obvious one is the full web client, and then if you guys go to the Interact page on worldwidetelescope.org, you'll see that we have a spectroscopy viewer and a planet explorer and some other things with like the great telescopes of the world, and we basically created these sort of custom views by sort of hand rolling an instance of the control and wrapping it with some Chrome and displaying it in different modes, like showing a WTML file and showing the thumbnails for all that. So then we decided, Dr. Robert Hurt is a great example of this embedded control. We wanted to create a way so it was easy for people to play a tour in their browser like you would play a YouTube video, or in the case of the Caltech Planck survey releases that Dr. Hurt put out, I think last January, or it might have got delayed till February, was it? We created a, and in fact, can we go to this? Let's just go to, can you guys see this? Oh. I think PowerPoint is changing how we're...
Like Windows P and like mirror your screen, your clone your screen. Good.
Okay. Oh, and PowerPoint just took it from...
PowerPoint Auto like does its stuff.
Okay. Yeah, let's not do that again with PowerPoint. So we created this embedded control so that we could see two surveys at once. So let's take thermal dust in the background and spinning dust in the foreground, and we can crossfade them. But he generated this embedded web control on the website itself. So there's this, oh sorry, it automatically logged me in. That's probably a bug for me. Okay. So basically you can say, I've got a WTML file, here's the URL, we can show it as a drop-down, or crossfade between two drop-downs, and then as I'm clicking each of these options, and can you guys see all this this code, or is it too small? Do you want me to increase my resolution? You guys, you guys there? Hello?
Yeah, we're here. We just when we talk, we take control of the video, so we do it. We mute. Takes a
Oh,
while
okay.
to walk up. So assume things are okay. But yeah, I would say if you can increase it a step or two, that would be good. But if it requires a lot of scrolling, then that's
Okay. So I've increased it to
what?
I've increased it 50%. And so you can control different things like your aspect ratio.
Just click on.
Stay here.
Okay.
So anyhow, and I might be going a little deeper at this stage of the presentation than I wanted to, but that's the embedded control. And then in the wild, the folks at Harvard created this ADS example, which I also want to show you guys. And I don't know if I know the history, who built this and when, but I know that one of the updates I did to the HTML5 SDK actually broke this site, which was awful. But here's somebody else who's made a custom viewer to show there's a bunch of historical data on here and a whole bunch of custom code that was written. I'm not sure who wrote it. I can't remember, but I know it's related to Harvard. So I'm going to just leave this sort of in edit mode so that we don't go full screen. Is there a way to turn that off?
So is that using the WWT API?
Yeah, it's using, so if you go to the SDK, the HTML5, so he asked a question if what Harvard did was using the Worldwide Telescope API. And the answer is yeah, it was done. If you get into the HTML5 SDK, and you can start to see the different ways that you can use it as a script library. So if you know JavaScript, you're going to get your fingers dirty with some JavaScript, which you know, is not everybody's favorite language, but I happen to love it. So yeah, let's go to just an overview of the web client. So when Jonathan asked me to replace the Silverlight client with the HTML5 web client, I was initially like, holy shit, I'm never going to do this. You know, it's going to be impossible. But I just started biting the elephant off a bit at a time and basically learned all of the ins and outs of the various methods that are available in the SDK, and some of it I had to actually, you know, modify some of his code and rewrite some functions and to really fully expose the Explore functionality, the search functionality, and everything. But it's done at a high level. We took a library, a JavaScript library called Angular, and used that to essentially manage what you see on the screen, and then it, under the hood, will call the different views. So if you switch from solar system mode to sky mode or to planet mode, it actually will make a call into the SDK and say, hey, let's switch to this, load this image set, load this WTML file, and the SDK handles that for you. So it's mostly, if you get into the web client code on GitHub, it will give you a real deep understanding of how the HTML5 SDK works. And so I recommend if you're looking to sort of understand how to do a particular feature, to see if you can dive into some of the Angular code and see how I'm making those hooks into the HTML5 SDK. So the Interact web control, I'm calling it Interact because it's the one that's on the Worldwide Telescope website. So this is one of those frustrating bits for me. You know, found out that this was going open source, and I had a stack of work to do just to button everything up and get the community's functionality put into Worldwide Telescope. and I never got a chance to actually break out the web control into reusable bits, because it would be wonderful to be able to say, here, go look at this spectral interactive, and here's a nice clean modular bit of code that you can see. You won't see that. What you'll see is there's a JavaScript file called the webcontrol.js, and it's a little bit sloppy. It's not quite cleaned up yet. It was basically created to give us shortcuts to how to do the same thing over and over, like creating Chrome around the viewport, the little YouTube-like bar.
By Chrome for those people who don't use
Do you guys know? Yeah. Do you guys know what Chrome is? It's Chrome just
Google
refers
browser.
to like the bits of the interface that are exposed to the end user. So if we go to like my site, thewebkid.com, I decided to show people that you can put Worldwide Telescope on your website. And so this here, this full screen bar, and this are the Chrome. And so this is all provided by the web control. It dynamically renders out that HTML and gives us the zoom buttons. And we implemented those before we actually have pinch zoom. So it also needs documentation. So this is something that I'm itching to do, to get it so that more people can use this. We found that people are more likely to take something that already has sort of the Chrome on it, the controls, the drop-downs, rather than writing their own implementation. They'll just take what's already been done and just declare it a markup using the embed control. And if I could show people, hey, here's one, you don't even have to have worldwidetelescope.org host it. You can just grab the script file and host it yourself, and it doesn't even have to, round trip with the iframe. So that's this bit here, which we went into earlier. And the way this works is basically the way a discuss chat works on someone's blog. Is you essentially put a container, a div, on your web page and a script reference to the embedded control.js, and it will populate that div with an iframe and then start making cross-frame script calls through, it's called post message. It's a new HTML5 thing. When you have a trusted relationship between two windows, and this is how, you can embed like a Google map onto your website, or you can embed a Facebook like button. It's sort of the same technology. At least I think it is. So the public, Jonathan, do you know who besides the ADS people did an HTML5 SDK implementation?
LIGO and some folks involved with VO event at Caltech, and the gold mine in Germany. It's a large survey that they have a data portal for. Those are some of the ones I can think of offhand.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to repeat all those. Jonathan listed about four different people who've got some public usages of the HTML5 SDK, but it's not, I mean, in my opinion, if people knew what this did, a lot more people would be creating with it, because you can do anything from just play a simple tour to write a full-blown web client, and there's a lot that can be done. It can be done today. It was able to be done before we even went open source. It was part of what we presented to the world when we were still part of Microsoft Research. We said, here's this SDK, go out and nest it on your web page and write all sorts of fancy implementations. So it would be amazing to see more people using this, doing visualizations. And so if there's something that you would like to do with the SDK, get in touch with me or Jonathan if you need help figuring that out. Love to help out with that type of thing. And I'm obviously not a professional presenter because I'm kind of jumping all over the map here. Because we did talk about the web control JS initially, but just to go more in depth on it, this is, and maybe I should open it up. Do you guys want to see it?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. I need to open a different project. One second. So, where did it go? It is right. Yeah. So, this control still not scrolling. This is like a script module, and it's got, again, this is not, has nothing to do with the web client. Actually, the web client doesn't touch this script. This is only for little what do you call them, kiosks or little viewports within your browser, within your web page, like on the Interact site, and for the embedded web control. This has got all sorts of nasty options and different ways that we've sort of said, okay, well, if we need to do a Planet Explorer, we need to add this, and we need to make sure the tour is loaded. We need to also use it to send events over the frame in the case of embedded web control. So this is used for essentially everything, and it needs to be split out. But if you're looking for examples on how to use various features in the Interact side, this is a good place to look. It's got like a WTML parser is one thing. Under the hoods, when you read a WTML file, it's basically an XML document, and we have to create places and foreground image sets in the background for the HTML5 SDK to read it into memory and be able to, you can say, let's create this new view of a nebula, and you can say, okay, in order to get that into the engine and say go to target, you have to first have it parsable, and that's what we do for the search data and things like that. And I can't exactly remember the specific use for where this is used, because you don't normally need to parse a WTML file. You just load it, and then you have access to the named objects. But there's other ways to sort of navigate the object model than just using like the load collection method. You can also basically go under the covers and create these places yourself. And this is some example code of how to do that. And we also do this in the web client, but it's wrapped with a whole different sort of script scaffolding. So basically, there's the different controls, the crossfader, which we saw, the open and worldwide telescope. So that's for like the import image. That you guys remember the import image thing that Jonathan showed you? down at the bottom left, which I was trying to tell him to show you guys, you can actually open that that file in Worldwide Telescope. So if we go to, well, I don't have a good image, so that would just divert us. But if you import an image, and it finds it, then you can actually open it in Worldwide Telescope, and you can save out that WTML file from that link. So Worldwide Telescope, zoom buttons, Worldwide Telescope logo. And so there's also, so like in the Planet Explorer page, let's have a look at that. Let's first go to the site so you guys can see what it is. You guys seen this?
Yes.
I know Doug has. You helped build it. But you click on one of these planets, and it takes you, zooms you right into it. And then there's, information. Hey, this is Mercury, and here's the image credit and whatnot. So this is something anybody could build with the right knowledge of the HTML5 SDK. And to sort of reverse engineer this, we can look at, let's go here. So the Planet Explorer has its own sort of page, and when it initializes, it will, right here, can you guys see the code?
Make the text larger.
Like 150?
150.
So when this initializes, the page itself will call this init function, and maybe I should show that too.
Just tell us what repo he's in.
Ron, we might have some people here who want to just follow along with Visual Studio on their laptops. Can you say what file you have and what repo? This is
So we're in the WWT website file.
Yeah.
Open that solution,
Not the web.
and then start in Views.
They can just do it right in GitHub if you want to follow along.
Yeah, you can do it in GitHub, or you can go in Visual Studio and follow along with me here. Is everybody ready, or you want me to slow down?
website. 36. Yeah, maybe give us a second.
All right.
And what now he's on the website. What's the solution? It's in.
It's the WWT website only. And just for information, as a side note, there's two solutions under the WWT website. The one that is WWT MVC5 contains some other projects that is an attempt. It's kind of a work in progress that Jonathan and I had planned to eventually move the back end into sort of an all-encompassing solution that could live in a different server environment. That's not currently how the site works or ever has worked. So that solution is totally experimental, and it's in progress, and it's sort of on hold for now. So the only solution that's relevant is basically this website only, and it has everything that is currently being used on the website. Not all the back end stuff, but all the website specific files.
Yeah, Ron, I guess we had a question here. We're looking at this in GitHub and not in Visual Studio. So what's the views interact? What's the top level folder for that? If you look on the left hand side of the Solution Explorer.
Yeah, let me collapse everything. We've got.
So it's MVC5. Okay.
So yeah, there's only one project in the solution.
He wants the folders in GitHub, so that they're following around in the code in GitHub.
Okay.
Not in the folders, so if you can,
Well, let's go there.
MVC5 / okay, yeah, you can do it here.
You want me to zoom in here?
Just exactly. Just okay, go to the web.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. So go to MVC5, and then
No, there's a solution.
You're saying just use the one solution.
No, in here there's two solutions. Yeah, here's someplace. There's one. All
Immediately it says, yeah.
are you guys following this?
like, says only
Yeah,
use the
thank
website.
Give them a second. They're hunched over a computer right now.
Yeah, but we're just repeating that the if you're going to build the solution that says website only, right? Ron?
Yeah, if you're going to build the solution, do the website only.
Right.
Okay, turn this one on.
And Cecilia was able to get this going recently. I had screwed up and included the web client files on the site, which made it unbuildable. But Cecilia figured that out and submitted a pull request.
So it's under views, and then what?
Yeah, interact.
So can you guys see this breadcrumb here?
Yeah.
Views, interact.
Thank you.
So, and these views, these CS HTML files, that stands for, I believe it stands for C# HTML. It's part of a framework called MVC, and you can map them to the route in the URL. And so this part of the URL that you see is grayed out, that's called your route. And so everything up to this point that gets rendered out by the browser is in the views folder. And then, so if you want to find a particular page's view, just look at this route, and the first part is going to be the folder. And then if there isn't a second part, it'll be the index file in that folder. So I guess it's in the same. So in this case, interact / Planet Explorer. And so we can open that. So I'm just showing you the Git page. I'm more comfortable in Visual Studio, so I'm going to go back to my comfortable shoe. But you guys can follow along in GitHub. So this is the script block that gets executed. This little function here is just a oh, it's window 1 load. It's not a we want to actually make sure everything is actually loaded, which is different than a DOM ready call. This makes sure everything is fully loaded, not just ready to start executing scripts. And then we call planetexplorer.init, and the resloc is it's a shortcut for resources location, and we use that to signify, I believe, it used to be the CDN, and I think this is, well, we can go, let's go look at the page and see. I believe it's blob storage now. You can tell it's been a while since I've messed with these Planet Explorers, but we can go spelunking just to see what the page output.
By the way, is it worth for Jonathan or Ron to go into any detail about the Azure, what blob storage is? Or is that not, is that detail we don't need to know? I'm feel free to ignore it.
No? You guys don't care? Yeah, it is the CDN. So, okay, let's go back into this. And so this basically just has, you know, some custom styles for the thumbnails, which I should have rolled into the less compiled CSS, but I didn't. And then got some modal dialogues here, which probably are ancillary to the discussion. Let's see, where did we go? Okay, so basically, if you're just working with a straight SDK, you create a container that's called Worldwide Telescope Control Host, and the SDK will look for that container and then inject a canvas element into it. And there are functions that do this. Now, where's my Planet Explorer? Or the JS file. So we can look at how this goes. So we initialize the elements. So when we load the solar system view, I didn't plan to actually go into this, so I'm still sort of familiarizing myself with how this went.
Yeah, this code. Typical JavaScript.
What's that?
No, I said I recognize this code. I mean, I didn't recognize this thing. It's good.
So this deep dive is good for you.
It's good for me. It's not good for anybody else. Sorry.
Yeah. So right here we're loading a WTML file from a URL, and once we do that, we can start iterating through the image sets. And let's see, control set background image by name. Go to text.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so this first after it gets to the dataset type 4, if it gets to the first one, it's actually starting off. That's that fancy zoom. When we first got there, when you load the page, the solar system goes wee, and you kind of like zoom into the solar system. That was a little trick to that we're doing with this code right here. And control is just an alias for the web control, and it actually makes it really easy to debug in the console. Do you guys want to see something in the console?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sort of feeling out what's relevant to people. I know some people think this is, you know, like stepping on glass, but some people really like this. So this is what you guys ever played with the Chrome console? So you can actually see, oops, you can actually see sort of some of the top level classes that are created as JavaScript classes. Here, and this is how I started to learn that, and beating down Jonathan's office door, saying, "Hey, what the hell is this?" It is basically how I learned is by just loading it up and running through it. So the script interface is sort of the public surface area of the SDK. And so you'll see that there's things like settings. Where's the settings? It is. You guys getting dizzy from me scrolling all over the place?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Jonathan, where's the settings object? Isn't it? Oh, it's right here. Okay, here it is. And so this is a great thing to reference. So WWT lib is the main object, and then if you put that in any browser console and go to the script interface property, it will show you what you can do with an instance of the control. So in the later presentation I'm going to give, we're actually going to fix a bug together in real time and check it in to GitHub, where we'll be playing with some of these settings. So we'll stay tuned for that. So where were we? Why did I go to the console in the first place? I was showing you guys, I guess, the go-to raw deck zoom feature, right? Which is here, and you can kind of see, how it works. And then once you find things like this, and you say, "Hey, what's this go to raw deck zoom?" You can actually pop open the HTML5 SDK file itself, and search for it in the code. So over here, Here's the WWT lib solution, and we can, I'm not going to do this now, but you can essentially traverse this and go spelunking into the C# code and find the named functions to see what parameters they take and really get a good sense of the internals of this. And it's a lot of fun. When you see some of this stuff come to life, it's pretty enjoyable. I highly recommend it. So let's see. Have I completely deviated from my plan? Yes, I have. So that's, I mean, it's impossible for me to give a good background on what the web control JS is. It's essentially me trying to get features done quickly and created a control that wasn't really intended for public consumption. But if you are looking at some of these pages and end up going through it, just know it's a sort of a mashup file, and it's used for the embedded web control as well as the interact pages.
So, are we on the microphone?
Yeah. You guys want to talk? You have a question about that?
Well, just kind of a top-level question. I mean, I like the deep dive, but the top-level question of if we're going to use the interact, which loads web controls JS, that's something I think it's loaded off of the CDN. So, where do you specify all of the sort of content that you're going to load into that? If you're going to load in, say, a tour or other information, where are you going to, where are you going to get that information from?
Is the question, where do you reference the script file that's used for the HTML5 SDK?
Well, I thought you were showing a simple example of the interact where you're just loading, like that one, where you're just loading in this web controls JS, but you said, you can load in a variety of different things.
Yeah,
For instance,
I'm a little bit scattered here. I had not intended to actually go through a walkthrough on how the web control works, but I know I started to, but if you want to know what you actually need to get it on the page, it's, I think it's on the left nav here, which is sort of a secondary master page. Yeah, so we load the web control, and then this HTML5 SDK 1.0.0. We have this notion of like creating some versioning, so it's like any other JavaScript library, so we don't break people in the future when we make enhancements to the SDK. So we'll have like a release number. Right now it's just 1.0, and it's exactly the same as when it lived in an ASPX file. And you can get it unminified by just putting debug equals 1 or something in the query string, and this code will basically unpack it and expand it. So these are all files that are, it's a little bit overly, I don't want to confuse you. You don't need these files to do this. You just basically need the web control. These are other sort of ancillary files that all the pages sort of use. I guess you would need the move control to move the slider. But these are all sort of, this is sort of the inside the sausage factory of things that we loaded on all the interact pages to get them to work. To get just an HTML5 SDK viewer onto a page, you just need this, and you just need where's the Planet Explorer? You just need this container, and then there's an initialization call, which I can't remember the syntax for, which we can look at. Sorry, I'm making you guys dizzy.
sample of all this is also in the SDK help file?
Yes, there's some bare bones standalone samples that Jonathan has put together that does all of this. Where is the thing?
You know where the SCA help file is under the developed documentation?
Yeah, I mean, I can look there. I think it's probably.
Yeah,
I thought it was just one file, and I was like, where are the rest of the files? So I think that answers my question.
Okay.
yeah. This, like, I think the short answer is this is not a good like bare bones example. You should look at the SDK for a good bare bones example, and then if you want to look at how to do deeper features like loading a WTML file or a tour or things like that. The web control JS is a good place to understand that, and it's really if you want to roll your own version of that HTML5 SDK and you want to get deeper into the programming. Most people tend to want to just embed like their own external player, like the Caltech folks when they did their Planck release, they just said, hey, would you just extend your embedded web control to have 2 drop-downs and a crossfader? And I said, okay, and so we created that for them. And that's, if you just want something simple, just look at the embedded web control and on that page and see if it suits your needs. So we've gone on to slide 10. And we talked about the embedded web control. Basically, there's a bunch of options that are set on your div tag, and then there's sort of a handshake that happens between the back end page and the front end sort of containing page. So that, for instance, this full screen. Let me show you the full screen control. So there's a really interesting feature where an object in an iframe cannot make itself full screen unless the click event originates in the parent document. And what I mean is, you see how it looks like I'm hovering over this full screen button? You guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not actually hovering over the full screen button. What I'm actually doing is hovering over an element that we put there. It's a really cute hack, and let me see if I can show you. Let's see. So that button lives on the div ID WWT control, which they put on the page, and then we absolutely positioned in the bottom right this this little anchor tag, and when you hover over this, it sends a message through the iframe into the host window and says, "Hey, I just hovered over your full screen button. Let's not kill the illusion that it's actually happening." So it actually sends a post message, and it the web control JS says, "Oh, I got the message." Puts the hover state in, and then when you click the full screen mode, the containing page, the top level page, fires the full screen event because it has the click event. The child page does not have access to the containing page's click event. It doesn't, and it doesn't have access to say, "Make me full screen." I'm not sure how other sites did it, but this was the only thing that ever worked for me, was to create it this way. And so when you have interactions between the top page and the embedded page, you can look at some of the ways that I did this in the embedded web control JS, and the page that this actually renders is called webcontrol.aspx, and it's got a sort of a handshake mechanism for shaking hands with a containing page. So, any questions about how that was done, or interesting things about the embedded web control? No?
That was a pretty clear explanation, thank you.
So really quickly, I think I'd like to show you the web control ASPX, just to give you a sense for what it is. And it lives in, so if you're on the website, just go to the root of the website. And that would be in the WWT MVC5 folder if you're on GitHub. And so this guy basically runs a whole bunch of inline script, which was planned to be abstracted out and cleaned up from the web control when the time came, which we never got time to do it, or I never got time to do it. So it all lives inline on this page. And you'll see that when the page loads, it's looking at the hash of the URL. So let's go back to the webkid.com and let's see. Oh, that's a bad example. This link's not working. Weird. Okay, now let's inspect element here. Control host. Should see a hash somewhere in here. Okay. So right here, you guys know what a hash is in a URL? It's the little pound sign. And the pound sign, you can encode all sorts of fun information. And since this isn't a publicly visible URL, nobody will see this URL because this is only internally used. But we pass in let's see, the location of the WWT file, and we say the host window. The host window is the webkid.com, and the tour is here. So I'm looking at the tooltip because it looks like the debug tool cuts off the full source. But basically, if we go back and look at the script that consumes this, that's this guy right here, this onload. It says, okay, let's parse the JSON here. And now options is actually a JavaScript object, and we can look for keys in it. Like if there's a tour, then we're going to initialize the tour player, and a tour player is another standalone file like the web control, and all it does is play and stop a tour, and puts tour Chrome into the web control. Otherwise, we want to call the web control JS that we were looking at earlier with these options, and these options can include all kinds of different things, permutations of that embed script that we saw on the website. So, and this sort of creates a handshake mechanism. The presence of this key right here that says remote basically says, hey, I'm in remote mode. We're going to have to talk over the pipe. It's a little bit different talking mechanism than me just working with an API. Anybody who's ever done cross-frame JavaScript stuff knows it's not the most fun thing in the world to try to get an iframe on another domain to talk to your document. It's not easy. So, I don't want to go in depth on this, but this is just a bunch of fun things to parse out a WTML file and create places and load them into a drop-down and do crossfader, and it's not clean. It's a little bit needs a little prettied up, but you know, I think it's good for everybody to know what this does. So I've been all over the map. Sorry about that. You guys have questions? Is my time up, Doug? Or
don't worry about going over the map. I mean, some of those are response to questions, so that's totally what this workshop's about. Are there any questions on this side?
I have a general question, which maybe, can you hear me, Rob?
what's that?
You hear Carl?
No, and I kind of want to go back to the Hangout so I can see your face.
Oh, you don't want to see.
It does sort of.
Yeah, it helps. Okay.
Is that
Hi.
better?
Yeah. Oh, and I look like the little kid with his head bobbing.
How do I unmake it? Okay, there we go. Oh my god. Okay.
So you may not be able to answer this question, but I can tell from what you were saying that you are, like, you have ambitions for the state of the web client code and the embeddable controls, and you're not satisfied with their level of hackability by other people right now. Do you have any medium-term plan for how to allocate your own time? Because you're like the world's expert in them right now. Do you see yourself working on documenting that stuff, or do you want to like fix the features that are in progress?
Well, you know, I mean, this is maybe a conversation for a different meeting, because this is sort of, you know, like a triage question of like, yes, I'd like to get to it. Yes, it's an itch. How that moves forward, and how, you know, my time gets prioritized is probably something that we'll have to schedule a different meeting for and figure that out. But it was one of those things. So the web client used to be, just so you know, what did happen is the web client used to be part of the website and was very much married and intermixed with the website, the styles, everything, the shared scripts. And so when I think it was Ben said, "Hey, dude, we got to separate out the website from the web client and make them two separate offerings." It was actually a lot of work to separate those two out and put them in their own sandboxes. But now the web client can live in its own sort of standalone island and be run as its own just web project, or it can be run as a directory of another web project. So specifically the Worldwide Telescope website. So some of that work has been done. I just wanted to continue it to work with the web control, because I think the most, it seems to me that the people who want to create little modules that do little things would much rather take a kind of a tool bag of things that have already been done and just use that tool bag rather than go in and you know, make their own. In other words, if you want to bake an apple pie, you don't want to go plant wheat in your backyard and go buy cows that you can milk. You know, you just basically, you know, want to get a bag of flour from the store if you're making it from scratch. And so by the same token, I think, you know, efforts into extending the web control JS, extending the embeddable functionality, I think would be a lot more useful to a lot more people. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys want to write a lot of these custom implementations? Or would you rather see my development efforts going into that and just having more options on some of these things?
Well, it seems right now that, because I remember looking at your site before, it seems right now that the information is in like a variety of different places, and that it's, you know, a little bit of a challenge to figure out those like sample projects and those capabilities that you would have in each, you know, of the solutions. So I think kind of some guides would be good, and actually when I get into it, that's something that I can, you know, help doing. But I don't know what kind of months it's going to be before I start working on this, but that's something I would do for myself and say, okay, here's the basic thing, here's me loading in some stuff, and then kind of building things up. But I don't feel like the building blocks are kind of all in the same room yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think the embedded web control is the closest thing we have to, something that if you want to serve various bits of imagery or surveys or places, you can load them from a WTML file. Stick them, have an embed code generated for you, and load it on your website. And that's the closest we have to like building blocks. However, I don't think the internals of how it works are as discoverable or user friendly to a developer audience, and it really it's pretty embarrassing for me actually to show that code in the state that it's in, because it's very much in sort of the mad scientist state where you're in code like hell and release to open source ASAP. So that's where I'm at.
I think that's a pretty normal place for code to be. Don't feel bad. Just label it.
But also, I think the balance of spending time to clean up the code to be perfect versus documenting it in a more kind of consistent way.
Yeah, and like because I know that's what I was saying to these guys. I mean, I recognize that code. That's the way most of my code looks, right? I mean, so it's maybe a matter of saying, hey, like this part was like mashed together. It just does the zoom. Hey, this part is like, you've got to load this stuff in there. This is core functionality. And I think just sort of starting to mark it out so that when we get in there, we know what parts are more well baked than others.
Okay.
I appreciate that sentiment, by the way. Thank you. That's comforting.
And that's kind of what we need. We need the developer voice saying back to our core team, this is what I'm looking for when it comes to the project that's not there that would help me do cool stuff with it. So.
Yeah. How many? There's a question here.
Make sure to repeat it.
Is there a place that we can go about it?
So the question was, for those of us who do want to take a week to dive into a project, is there a place where we can see what was?
Is there a place? Because I was looking on the GitHub. Is there a place where we can see kind of what requests or what would be valuable?
Yes, she wants to know if there's a place where we can see what requests for features are there, and there's actually been quite a lot of activity around the web client. In fact, if I can just show you really quickly. So here's the main Worldwide Telescope page. Here's the web client, and then if we go over here and click issues, there are 45 unread by me issues recently.
Hey, Ron, can you share your screen so we can see what you're doing on our side?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that I'd unshared it. 1 second.
So are there different kind of bigger picture, lower picture, cloud issues?
That's not really prioritized. It hasn't been baked that much.
Well, some of it has been prioritized, and Doug and I have begun working on. I've given him some estimates of what. These are. So there's updates to them that I haven't seen, but I have responded to, like, here's this. The iPad functionality is poor. And here's some of the comments. Hey, I can't do this because I don't have an iPad. So let's.
Send me an iPad.
Yeah. If you have a free iPad for me, then I'd be happy to look at your bug. So.
But as a general comment for the person who asked the question.
So Nina's still asking a question really quick for those of you online. You can't hear her, but she's following up. So
say I have some radical idea that I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to invest on it.
So-
would be a good place to start.
So the question is, say I have a radical idea that I want to go off and experiment with something. Would I put that issue in GitHub or what? And Jonathan says that's a good place to start, is to put the idea in GitHub. Also, GitHub is your playground, and you can download it locally and see if you're, if you want to figure out how to visualize comets as pencil erasers, in the solar system, and see if that looks cute. You can just do that on your own and see how to do it, and then if it's like a little private pet idea, and then if you really like it, put an issue out and issue a pull request. If you think your feature is worth being considered by the team, basically. And the way we're doing pull requests is, it's just we have to evaluate code that people submit. Is this something that we agree on is in our highest priorities? Is this the direction that the app really wants to go? Because obviously people, somebody could come in and say, hey, let's change the color scheme to pink, and here's the pull request. We say, well, it's not what we're going to do.
Is she still asking a question, or?
Yeah, she is asking a question. Sorry, it's kind of difficult to know. She said to vet that issue. Yeah, so she's saying initially it would be a good idea to put an issue in the issues tracker to just get Carl or Doug or even Eric Carter to comment on the feasibility, the viability of the idea, and Jonathan and I can come in with maybe a technical comment about that too. So,
can I add something, Rob?
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt, and of course, there's one person I can't.
No,
help.
I think she's done.
So the issue trackers are a good place to have discussions. You can file a quote-unquote bug report there, which is really just a conversation starter about a possible feature or change. Even if you don't intend to start coding right away, you can just get people's reactions. We should document this in the developer documentation, but in GitHub in general, if you're writing a comment or filing a new ticket and you want to bring someone into the conversation, you just use @sign and then their GitHub username, and GitHub will sort of autofill for you. It'll help you. So like I write, hey, @sign Astro Jonathan or @sign GoWebKid, what do you think next? So people should know, like, you can draw people into a conversation and issue if you're worried about whether or not they'll see it. The other thing is you can also post to forums.worldwidetelescope.org. Either place is an okay place to start that discussion. Discussions sometimes get moved from where they start to a more appropriate forum depending on where they go, but the starting point doesn't matter too much. Just bring the idea out there and get it to where people can see it and make sure that they do see it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that.